Ghost in the Shell. Man, oh man, have I been waiting to see this movie. For people that don't know, because believe it or not, a lot of people don't know, this is a live-action American adaptation of a well-known anime. I'm sure half of the people that walk out of this movie are going to think that this is some sort of Matrix ripoff, which is upsetting because, as most people should know, this came out way before the Matrix was even a thought in the Wachowski brothers' heads. And I was pretty damn excited to see this film because when I watched the trailer, it looked like the filmmakers were at least able to capture the world and atmosphere of the original Ghost in the Shell. But at the same time, I was keeping my expectations rather low due to the atrocious previous attempts to adapt other well-known animes. I really just wanted this movie to be a decent viewing experience, and it was. It's definitely a good movie. It's not phenomenal all the way around, but overall it's currently the most accurately realized live-action adaptation of an anime that I've ever seen. This is an aesthetically breathtaking movie. The cinematography is incredibly gorgeous and impressive. You can tell that they took their time in framing every single shot of this movie, and that's something that I highly appreciate in filmmaking. The score complements the dramatic setting of its cybernetic future by utilizing this hybrid of orchestra and electronic synth. And I thought the opening sequence of this movie was such a great, tense, atmosphere-building introduction that really sucks you into this film's world. Now, one of my biggest concerns before going into this movie was whether or not this was going to be faithful to the source material. And for the most part it is, and manages to keep the same themes regarding identity and about what makes a human a human. It doesn't dive as deep into it as it does in the original, but I'll talk more about that in a second. But the actual main focus of this movie is to flesh out the main character played by Scarlett Johansson, known as Major. Fans of the original movie and anime series know that Ghost in the Shell is a character and theme-driven anime. It has a handful of intense action sequences, but it spends more time on fleshing out the story, characters, and themes. Same goes with this new live-action Ghost in the Shell movie. I feel like every person going into this film who aren't in any way familiar with its precursor are going to be underwhelmed by this movie. I feel like a lot of people are going to go into this movie expecting an action-packed, intense thrill ride, when it's not like that at all. Which I thought was great because it's loyal to the source material in that respect, and I like movies that focus more on theme and character. And speaking of characters, Danish actor Pilou Asbak, I probably fucked his name up nicely, was a great casting choice and portrayed the character Batu extremely well. And let's talk about Scarlett Johansson. Everybody knows about the controversy surrounding the casting choice of Scarlett Johansson, and how this is another example of Hollywood quote-unquote whitewashing characters that are supposed to be played by minorities. Look guys, I'm not gonna deny that sometimes Hollywood does in fact do this, like for instance in the film like Gods of Egypt or Exodus Gods and Kings, where it's set in ancient Egypt and somehow every character is as pale as white bread. Yeah, it's dumb and doesn't make any sense in terms of story and historical accuracy. But when it comes to something like Ghost in the Shell, it's an adaptation of something. So in terms of adaptation, I expect a few things. First one being that the actress or actor must come close to resembling their original character. And just by looking at this picture, I think that most people would agree that Scarlett Johansson wins in that department. And you know, just as an example, let's take a famous Asian actress and see if she resembles the major character. Let's just go with Lucy Liu. Now, does Lucy Liu even remotely look like the original character? To me, nah. Like, not even close. Hell, let's see what the actual Asians in Japan think about this casting choice.
でも日本人がやるよりいいんちゃんって思うけどな。なあ。なんかアニメやからな。そんななんかな。目の色とか。確かに。ちょっと日本人離れした方がぽいやんな。ぽい。アニメ的には。
僕原作1話しか見てないんで、まあでも結構似てるし全然はい。悪くはないんちゃうんですかね。
綺麗ですよね。綺麗。綺麗。
They obviously don't think it's a big deal, and they actually are excited about the casting choice. And honestly, if Scarlett Johansson didn't play this role, I don't think this film would even make its money back, because in the showing that I went to, it seemed like more than half of them were not familiar with the source material and were only there to see what was marketed to them, a Scarlett Johansson action bonanza. And if a lot of them are underwhelmed by this movie, which I'm sure they will be, this film will be lucky to make its money back. And if we somehow get a sequel, it's only because of her. So in a nutshell, those are my thoughts regarding that whole controversy, if you want to even call it that. So the second thing that I would want from the actor or actress is for them to be an accurate reflection of the original character in terms of their acting style. And after seeing this movie, she did a phenomenal job. She does a great job at expressing the emotional subtleties of a human android yearning to understand her past and human emotions. This isn't the first time that Scarlett Johansson plays this kind of subtle android computer-like character. She does it in Under the Skin, which is a great artistic piece of filmmaking. She did it in Lucy, which was more entertaining than anything. and then now in Ghost in the Shell. So having already seen her play these kinds of roles, I had a good feeling that she was going to be able to pull this character off well. Some of the other side characters were kind of experimented with, but it didn't bother me too much because the film hardly focused on them. The part where this film really derails from the original are some of its plotline points and story writing. It's able to recreate a lot of the same scenes from the original, but it's incorporated into a different plotline. It was still cool to see them capture the style of these scenes, even though some of them seemed shoehorned and contained a different context. Some of the different plot elements worked, and some weren't as compelling. There's a decent plot point that works where our main character faces a moral dilemma that makes her question her preconceived notions of good and evil. But the villain in this film is much simpler and easier to grasp than the villain in the original Ghost in the Shell movie. The villain in the original was incredibly complex that made you ponder about deep philosophical themes regarding identity, humanity, and death. Even though this film kept these themes, it's much more watered down, and it seems like they tweaked it so general audiences aren't so perplexed by it, which is kind of a letdown and was probably the biggest letdown that this movie gave me. But overall, I really enjoyed this live-action adaptation of the anime. Even though it suffers from a watered-down theme and less compelling plot points, I'm pleasantly surprised that the filmmakers paid attention to certain moments and details that existed in the original. They were also able to capture the atmosphere and tone of the original, so I'm going to give Ghost in the Shell a B+. I recommend everybody to check out this movie, even though I think fans of the original will get more of a kick out of it. And as always, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you've already seen the movie, comment below and let me know your thoughts on it. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And make sure to subscribe to the Misfit Pawn channel to be updated on more film-related content.